Everyone. So today let's print hollow rectangle pattern using C programming. So for this pattern, we'll take two integers n and m as our inputs. So n will represent the height of the rectangle and m will represent the base of our rectangle. So that is the number of points in our base and the number of points in our height respectively. So for this pattern, we will consider x and y coordinates. So let's take x and y axis. So this is our y-axis and this would be our x-axis. So since we have four lines in our rectangle, we will consider four equations, one equation for each line. So let's write down the equations for our lines. So our first line is this one, height. So the equation for this line would be x equal to 0. Since all the points in this line has x coordinate equal to 0, so we can represent this line as x equal to 0. So our equation for the first line is x equal to 0. So what about the second line? That is this line. So in this line, if we observe, y coordinate is 0. X is varying, but y coordinate is always 0. So the equation for this line would be y equal to 0. Now let's check for the third line. That is this one. So in this, the x coordinate is constant, but the y coordinate is varying. So we can represent this line as x equal to some constant c. So what would be the value for that constant? So since we are given that our base length is equal to m, but our coordinate starts from 0, so that means this point would be m minus 1. So the coordinate x coordinate for this particular point would be m minus 1. Hence the equation for this third line would be x equal to m minus 1, m minus 1. Similarly, let's check for the fourth line. So for this line, we have to consider the y coordinate since x is varying and y is constant for this line. So let's say what would be the y coordinate for this line. Since the length of our height is given as n and our y coordinate starts from 0, that means this particular point would have y coordinate equal to n minus 1. So the y coordinate for this particular point would be n minus 1. Hence the equation for our fourth and final line would be equal to y equal to n minus 1. So these are the four line equations. And along with this, we have to add some boundary conditions. So since our line can't exceed n minus 1, so it can't go beyond n minus 1 or less than 0, we have to give some boundary conditions. That is, y coordinates must always be in between 0 and n minus 1. Similarly, x coordinate must be always in between 0 and m minus 1. So using these boundary conditions and our line equations, we can print our rectangle pattern, the hollow rectangle pattern. So let's see how we can write the code for this. So firstly, we have taken n and m as input. So these are integers and we are scanning them from the user. Then we have to iterate over the y coordinates. So each line represent one y coordinate. So let's take a for loop. So we are starting from n y equal to n minus 1 and going till y equal to 0. So since we will run our loop from top to bottom, so we have to consider the first value, that is the largest value for y possible. So since our boundary condition starts from n minus 1 and ends at 0, we'll take our for loop for y coordinate starting from n y equal to n minus 1 and ending at y equal to 0. So let's take the for loop. Int y equal to n minus 1 y should be greater than or equal to 0, and then we decrement our y. Now we have to iterate over the x coordinates. So x coordinates will start from left to right. So our left coordinate is 0 and the rightmost coordinate is m minus 1. So let's take for loop for y x coordinate x equal to 0, x should be less than or equal to n minus 1, m minus 1, and x plus plus. We have to increment our x. Now we are at cell level. So at each cell, we should either print a symbol or we should leave it blank. That is, we should print space. So we can determine this using these equations. So using these four equations, if any of the points satisfies any of these equations, we have to print a symbol. So let's say star. And if any point does not satisfy any of the given lines, then we have to print a space. So let's do that. So we'll add a if condition. So if we have four equations, so let's add them. If x equal to 0 or y equal to 0, our second line, or x equal to m minus 1, x equal to m minus 1, or y equal to n minus 1. So these are the four equations that we have. So let's add those. So if a point satisfies any of these conditions, then we should print a symbol. Let's say star. And if it does not satisfy any of these conditions, then in the else case, we have to print a space. So once we iterate over the whole row, we have to go to the new line. So let's add a new line at the end. So yeah, this is the code to print the hollow rectangle. Now let's see if there are any bugs. Let's try to run it. So we have to pass n and m values. So let's say n equal to 4 and m equal to 8. Yes. So we are getting the output. So you can see there are four lines and the number of points in our base is equal to 8. So this is matching our expected output. Let's try for some larger values of n and m. So let's say 10 and 24. Yes, as you can see, we are getting the output. So this is the code. So we have used coordinate geometry idea. We have taken the equations of each line and added boundary conditions to it. So we are checking in this boundary for x and y respectively. And if any of our points satisfies any of these equations, then we are printing a star or else we are printing space. So hope you have liked the solution. So if there are any doubts, you can comment it out in the comment section and I will reply to those. So thank you so much. Goodbye.